Hey everyone, what we're going to be doing today is taking an asset from Maya, going to put that in Unreal, and we're going to add some basic mechanics to it. So the first thing we need to do is make sure we've got asset as an FBX. So we do FBX because that's the format that a lot of different programs use. So we're converting it from a Maya file. So I'll open that up. Make sure everything's named correctly, because when we take it into a different program, it's going to just take our name. So my material is called crate. Okay, I know crate lid, crate no lid. Let's just call that crate. Okay, need to delete the history, freeze transformations. Yep, that's done. Pivot points where I want it. Now it is going to import this as two separate things, which is fine because I'm going to use that to animate it later. If you're bringing in something such as your character, we do this a different way, and I can show you that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these, I'm going to go File, I'm going to export my selection, and I'm going to put it here. I'm going to do it as an FBX, create animation, so it's actually got an animation attached to it, but I won't do that one, so I'm going to call this one just crate. Okay, I don't want to do the animation, so I'll turn animation off. And I'm going to export that. Yep, cool, all done. So now I go into Unreal. So we've talked about which sort of version we're going to be using here with your template. So select the template. Now this one, the mechanic I'm going to show you is something that will actually work in all of the templates. So for now, let's just go to a third person. I just need to move it over this screen so I can press the button. I get to choose a few different things here. So blueprint, let's leave it on blueprint. It's for a desktop. Maximum quality, you might want to make it scalable if it's going to be higher graphics, but we can change that later. Look, adding starter content's excellent when it comes to your project. If you're just doing a test, you don't necessarily need to. It adds about 700 megabytes, which isn't too bad, but let's just call this crate the game. Okay, it's going to save there, so make sure you know where it's going. And I'm just going to create the project. So now it's loading all of that up. Okay, so it's loaded up. So here is my screen. So I've got an outliner with everything in the world. Okay, here is my viewport where I can see my level. And down here is my content browser with some assets. Now I really like pressing this one, so then I've got this view as well, so I can click through the folders quite easily. So let's just import our crate. So over here in content, I'm going to create a new folder. So that was a right click, new folder, and I'm going to call it my assets. And then I'm going to go with my assets, I'm going to go import, and I'm going to browse to here and go crate open. Now it gives me some options. Now it's not a skeletal mesh because it doesn't have a skeleton. I'm going to make it stay however Maya told it, so leaving all these the same. You can import it and import the scale. I'm going to import the materials, textures, that should be all good. Import all. Comes up with this, which is normal. I'm going to X that and see what you can see is it's created some assets. So green is a material, as we can see in the brackets. Red is the texture. And then I've got two static meshes here, so the crate and the lid. So let's just drag in my crate. Okay, that looks quite nice. I'm going to press play. Let's see what it does. Yeah, it's a pretty good size. Now it's automatically created the collision, and for this, the collision is what I would quite like with it. If I'd like to make a custom collision, I'll show you that during lesson. Okay, and also the top left hand corner it says the lighting needs to be rebuilt. That's just because there's a new asset in there, and so the lighting needs to process so it knows where to bounce off of and things like that. Okay, so I've got everything in here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make my first class blueprint. So when it comes to us placing objects, we don't just drag them in and then program it in some way to say every time you go near a crate, disappears, what we do is we create class blueprints. So I'm going to create a new folder and go my blueprints, and blueprints is the programming that we do. I'm going to go over here and right click, and you can see a basic asset is the class blueprint. And generally we're using an actor. Okay, so an actor is an object that can be placed or spawned in the world. I'm going to call this crate pickup. So let's say this is some sort of asset where you would walk up to and it would be a health pickup or something. So let's just call it that. I'm going to double click in here. And so now it's saying, okay, so what is your blueprint? So this is my viewport, which is what it looks like. And then this is my coding, the event graph. So I'm going to go to my viewport and I'm going to add a component to it because at the moment there's nothing there. I'm going to add a static mesh. And that static mesh I select from over here. So it's going to open up all the static meshes in this scene. So there's some starter content. Now I'm just going to go crate. I'm going to put the crate in there. Cool, there it is. And I'm going to add another static mesh. And that's going to be the crate lid. Done. And it's added those in beautifully. So now, if I go over here and put in that, it's added those. But there's actually no functionality to that yet. So I'll just delete that one. So the functionality happens when I add, in here I'm going to add a trigger box, a box collision. So that means that when something enters this, something's going to happen. And all assets in games have these. They're just invisible boundaries, a bit like an automatic door, so that when you walk into that space, something happens. Now, it's a challenge to get the size right, because you want the player not to be on top of it before something happens. Let's just make it about that. And we can always update these. Now, regularly when we make changes, we compile. Compile just processes it so that we actually get the most accurate reflection of what it is in the game. Okay, so here's my trigger box. But at the moment, I haven't told it to do anything. So I'm going to go to my event graph now, and I'm just going to delete that. Okay, I'm going to select my box, and over here I'm going to right click, and I'm going to add an event for the box. Now if I don't have the box clicked, or if I have static mesh, I go right click, add an event for static mesh, because it is currently context sensitive, so it's only showing things for static meshes. At the moment it's only showing things for trigger boxes. So I'm going to right click and go add an event for the box, and it's a collision event. When a component begins to overlap that box, something's going to happen. So I'm going to drag out of this and I'm going to put a new node. Now what I want to do, the most basic thing I could do is I could simply destroy the actor. So I'm going to walk into the box and it's going to destroy. So let's see what that looks like. So I've compiled it, I press play. Okay, I should walk up to it, boop, and it's gone. There we go. Now press escape and it's back. Now something that programmers like doing is printing strings. These are things that come up to give you feedback as to what's happening. So the string, it'll say collected box. Let's call it crate. Collected crate. And there we go. Now another thing that's nice, because players like feedback, let's create sound. And what it's going to do, so what sounds do we have? We've got some explosions. So let's just maybe add an explosion. Compile. Okay, so now when I walk in there. Okay, there we go. So you can't hear the explosion, but there's an explosion. So this is what we can do. And then I can just simply drag these out. And possibly the game is, so you've got to think about how this works with the functionality of your game. Possibly you could have, and we could just change this blueprint here. So I'm going to duplicate this. And I'm going to call this, stamina. And instead of it being, I'm going to use the exact same code here. Instead of it being the crate, it's going to be something else that is here. Let's go pillar, and I'm going to get rid of this one. So I can just make some simple changes, and then now, wowzers, okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go play, and I'm going to pick this up, kablamo, collected crate. Okay, so I need to update that print string as well. And there I have my first asset in the game, and I've actually also got in there some functionality. So what we'll do then is we need to add in a HUD. We need to make sure that then if it's a point system or it talks to your health and things like that. But let's think about what's essential, and at the moment we've got that in terms of it being essential. So good luck, you can do it.